Anyone who believes in indefinite growth on a physically finite planet is either mad or an economist.
We don't want to focus politics on a notion that involves the rejection of principles around which a large majority of our fellow citizens organize their lives.
We are not as endlessly manipulable and as predictable as you would think.
In my mind, there's absolutely no doubt, and we saw this from the Select Committee report the previous week, that the educational underperformance of white working-class girls and boys, whose attainment is disproportionately low even when compared to other economically disadvantaged groups, is one of the most pressing social justice issues we face in education policy as a nation. So it was both inspiring and instructive to have witnessed firsthand exactly how the RSA's Enlightenment theory translates into practical progressive action when I visited the RSA academies in Redditch and in Tipton. I share with the RSA's Chief Executive, Matthew Taylor, a hope, a belief that a powerful convergence of technological, sociological and economic forces are raising the tantalising prospect of a new 21st century Enlightenment, an era when the positive freedom and power necessary to determine, dictate and create one's own life chances can be extended to the many as opposed to being the preserve of an elite few. So I'm extremely supportive of the intellectual journey that the RSA is embarking upon with its power to create strategy that seeks to harness these complex forces towards practical, progressive outcomes. And given the enormous emancipatory power of education and its unique ability to create the next generation of young citizens, I'm delighted to have been invited here to spell out how the Labour Party hope to build an education system similarly fit for a 21st century Enlightenment. It's always good not to have too grand an objective in politics. Naturally, this will involve answering the question posed to me as part of this grand curriculum design series about who should have the power to create the school curriculum. And my answer is this: a process led by teachers and head teachers. However, I also want to address the broader cultural choices which will face our education system as a result of its engagement with this new Enlightenment epoch. Because it is my belief that if we are to prepare young people to fulfil their potential in this most demanding of centuries, we need to begin to chart a course away from the top-down, target-driven, exam-obsessed, managerial performance culture that has permeated our education system in recent years. Whatever else anybody says about the now former Secretary of State, his focus on school structures, obsession for new performance measures and centrally directed curriculum tinkering have done little to counteract this culture. So equipping all our young people with the skills, knowledge and curiosity to compete in the global marketplace, whilst at the same time offering a rich educational experience that empowers them with the positive freedom to be active citizens with a strong moral character, that has to be our aspiration. We need to open a new chapter in progressive education reform. As John Locke, that pillar of the original English Enlightenment, said, "The rod, which is the only instrument of government that tutors generally know or ever think of, is the most unfit of any to be used in education." We in the Labour Party could not agree more with that sentiment, and we believe there is only one instrument strong enough to embed a creative, innovative and self-improving culture across the whole of our education system. That is the passion, moral mission and overwhelming motivation of teachers to deliver an excellent education for all pupils. Now, of course, it's easy to declare that the quality of teaching is the most important factor in raising attainment, particularly when all the evidence attests to that fact. Crafting a serious public policy agenda that is also profession-led is a far more difficult task. But our focus on teaching comes after 4 years of reflection upon the society and economy Britain needs in order to compete in our globalising, technologically volatile world. And as the handmaiden of a strong economy and a vibrant society, an understanding of education's pivotal role within that. Because with the IPPR's Condition of Britain report last month, I think we saw a powerful rejoinder to those who doubt the ability of social democrats to renew the public realm following the 2008 financial crash. Equally important, in my view, is a speech John Cruddas gave in this very room just a fortnight ago, appropriately entitled Radical Hope. In what can only be described as a sociological tour de force, John provided a 21st century update of the late great Eric Hobsbawm's seminal essay, The Forward March of Labour Halted, highlighting the challenge that all public institutions face when we move between industrial epochs into radically different social contexts. To give an emotive example, so awesome is the technological power being unleashed by this digital revolution that I do not believe it will be long before somebody proposes an entirely institution-less model of schooling. Do not mistake me, I passionately believe that we must celebrate the fact we educate our children in a supportive social environment, and that there is something intrinsically valuable in schools as dedicated learning communities where young people learn from each other as well as from teachers. But we only have to look at the popularity of massive open online courses and the curriculum of one movement in the United States to understand how such a model might look in the hands of those less committed to the social ethos of schooling. In epochs such as these, the old adage that politics is the art of the possible becomes less a question about who we are and more a question about who we can become. Now, as is so often the case, our children have far less muddled thinking about the future than we do. As the National Citizenship Service's recent Evolution of the Teenager research shows, there is an emerging generation citizen of young people who are becoming far more creative, resilient, inquiring, ambitious, entrepreneurial, and community-minded. They instinctively know what the 21st century will ask of them, and they are demanding the power and positive freedom to respond to it accordingly. It is our duty then to equip them with that freedom, to grant them the power to shape their own life chances and the opportunity to create their own futures, all of which stems from an excellent, well-rounded education. But what John Cruddas concludes, and what I believe, is that delivering this requires collective action. As he said here, the socialism of the future will be about creating power together for individual freedom. And that means taking a view on who teachers are and who teachers must become. Professionals whose job is so important that it requires the very highest levels of performance. As someone who has also been lucky enough to spend most of my working life teaching young people, I have nothing but respect for the dedication, commitment, and professional integrity of those working in teaching. It is very simple. Good teachers change lives, awaken the lifelong thirst for knowledge and aspiration in young minds that a strong economy and a vibrant society so desperately needs. And the act of teaching, that moment when you actually think you're imparting knowledge and then it comes back to you and you begin to understand yourself more the process in which you're engaged, is the excitement I always find of what teaching was about. But what I also understand is how in every classroom, school and cluster that is performing well, there is an ethic of teamwork, of partnership and solidarity between professionals, a determination to tackle shared